Come to part 3 of Nigerian history from 1914 to 2014. Now we have seen that in this series we have seen in part 1 whereby we looked at the origin of Nigeria from 1914 to date. We looked at the origin behind the creation of Nigeria. Then in part 2 we looked at Nigeria from 1914 to 1922. Now this part 3 is going to look at Nigeria from 1922 to 1945. Now during this period, most part of the 1920s, there was no much issues except from the Aba Women riots, which happened in 1929, which was as a result of colonial taxation, and the women were forced to pay tax, which was against the normal norms of the Aba people, which was that women did not pay tax, but now they instituted that women must pay tax. Also, it was a period which saw the enforcement of the indirect trade system in other parts of the country, and it failed woefully in the east because the warrant chiefs were trying to impose British rules in the east, and this was one of the key factors that caused the Aba Women riots. Aside from the Aba Women riots, no other major issue happened in the 1920s. The Clifford Constitution was still on and did not face any form of criticism until the mid-1930s. Now, the mid-1930s saw the creation of a new political movement known as the NYM movement. The NYM means Nigerian Youth Movement, and also not just by the NYM but also other young Nigerians, especially students, which formed the association which was known as WASU, West Africa Student Union. Now many of these students and young people began to reshape the old political ideologies of the likes of Abba Macaulay that were looking for inclusivity, but this new set of people were looking for to own Nigeria, that they wanted Nigeria to be ruled and controlled by Nigerians, with the likes of Ernest Ekoli, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and many other young Nigerians. And also, many of these new contemporary nationalists were not born, although they were born before amalgamation, but they began to gain consciousness. They began to gain consciousness and political awareness after the amalgamation. So many of them see themselves as Nigerians, compared to the first set of nationalists who did not see themselves as Nigerians. They saw themselves as British living in Nigeria. But however, by the mid-1930s, this new set of nationalists began fighting the colonial government, bringing a new style of fighting the colonial government by using the printing press. Now, the printing press played a major role in the fighting of the colonial government. But however, nationalism was kept on hold by 1939 as a result of the Second World War. Now, the Second World War commenced in 1939, and Britain was a key factor or a key player in the Second World War. So was Nigeria, because Nigeria was under Britain, so we were forced to fight in the war. So more Nigerians were recruited into the Royal British Army, and many of them were sent to Burma. Where they served alongside with their Indian counterparts. Now, Nigerians played a major role in defeating the Japanese in Burma, and by 1945 the war ended, and the Second World War ended with British victory, but however saw Britain weakness. Like the war led to British weakness. Now Britain won the war, but politically, internationally, it became weak, and with a lot of pressure from international bodies like the Soviet Union and the United States, Britain was put in a level that it had to start releasing it had to start any colonialism. So many of these nationalists, many of these new generational nationalists with the like of Zik, saw that there was already a weak Britain, so they began to use this period to clamor for more amenities and even call for the end of the Clifford Constitution, which they saw oppressive, and this saw the birth of a new constitution known as the Richard Constitution of 1946. Now, the Richard Constitution of 1946 will be critically explained in the next video, that is the part 4 of this Nigerian history series. So I hope you learned something today. Thank you. Stay tuned too.